Here's something that might blow your mind. You are not just the sum of your own experiences. In fact, you're carrying around the trauma of your grandfather's war, the wisdom of Marie Curie's curiosity, and the metabolic memory of your grandmother's hunger, all woven together in ways that no artificial intelligence could ever replicate. But here's the kicker. We're living in an age where we might be about to lose the very thing that makes us human, the struggle to construct our own beliefs. Welcome to Mindcast, where we dive deep into the ideas that shape how we think, learn, and understand ourselves. I'm Will, and today we're exploring one of the most fascinating questions of our time. What's the fundamental difference between how humans and artificial intelligence actually know the world? Today's episode is based on a groundbreaking academic paper called The Human Sum and the Algorithmic Sum. And trust me, this isn't your typical dry academic analysis. This is about understanding the very essence of what makes you, you, and why that matters more than ever in our AI-dominated world. By the end of this episode, you'll understand the 3 hidden layers of human consciousness that AI can never access, why the way we learn is fundamentally different from machine learning, and most importantly, why the struggle to form your own beliefs might be the most human thing you can do. So let's dive in. First, let's completely reimagine what human identity actually is. We tend to think of ourselves as the sum of our experiences, right? I am who I am because of what I've lived through. But that's only scratching the surface. Human consciousness actually operates on 3 distinct layers. Think of it like an archaeological dig of the self. The first layer is your personal, embodied experience. But here's what's fascinating. This isn't just storing experiences like files on a hard drive. When you touch a hot stove, you don't just log hot stove equals pain. Your neural pathways literally rewire. Your amygdala encodes fear. Your cerebellum stores the muscle memory of recoil. And your prefrontal cortex builds a causal belief. The experience doesn't just get filed away. It metabolically transforms who you are. But here's where it gets really wild. The second layer. You literally carry your ancestors' experiences in your body. And I'm not talking metaphorically here. Through epigenetic transmission, your grandmother's experience of famine can actually alter gene expression that gets passed down to you. You might be born with a hypersensitive stress response because your grandfather survived a war. This isn't just psychological inheritance, it's biological. You inherit not just DNA, but the lived data of survival itself. And the third layer might be the most uniquely human of all, your emotional bond with historical figures. Think about it. Abraham Lincoln, Marie Curie, Gandhi, or whoever you deeply admire, these aren't just intellectual interests. You form parasocial relationships with these figures. They become part of your ego ideal. You don't just know about Lincoln's resolve, you strive to embody it. You internalize their perceived values and use them to calibrate your own moral compass. So you're not just the sum of your experiences, you're the metabolic integration of your embodied life, your ancestral inheritance, and your chosen ideals. And here's the kicker. These 3 layers are constantly in conflict with each other. Your personal experience might tell you the world is dangerous. Your ancestral programming might make you hyper-vigilant. But your chosen hero might have been defined by bravery and trust. This creates cognitive dissonance, and that's exactly where the magic happens. Now let's contrast this with how AI actually works, because the difference is staggering. And AI's experience is fundamentally different from ours in 3 crucial ways. It's disembodied, static, and secondhand. Think about this. A human child can learn about gravity from dropping a cup once. They feel the weight, hear the crash, see the effect, and build a causal understanding. They learn the world through their body. An AI has to read millions of sentences about gravity to learn the statistical correlation between words like gravity, fall, apple, and Newton. It learns words about the world, not the world itself. This is called the grounding problem in AI. When you think apple, you're not just accessing a statistical vector. You're remembering the smooth skin, the sweet tart taste, the satisfying crunch. That's grounded knowledge. When an AI processes apple, it's manipulating mathematical relationships between symbols. It knows what is said about apples, but it doesn't know apples. And here's another crucial difference. Humans build causal models. We understand why things happen. AIs are masters of correlation. They know what typically comes next. When you understand that fire is hot, you can generalize that understanding to novel situations, like a type of chemical fire you've never seen. You have a causal theory that's robust and generalizable. An AI knows that the word fire is statistically associated with hot, but faced with the truly novel scenario, it fails or hallucinates because it has no actual model of the world, just a model of text. The human process of constructing beliefs is formative. It literally changes who you are. The AI process is performative. It generates statistically coherent text without any internal change or growth. When you work through cognitive dissonance to form a belief, you become that belief. When an AI generates a response, it remains exactly the same afterward. This brings us to what might be the most important insight of all. The paper asks a haunting question. What happens when a species that spends its life constructing theories becomes increasingly reliant on machines that simulate theories? There are two possible futures here. The optimistic view is co-construction. We use AI as a powerful cognitive tool to handle the what, all the data retrieval and summarization, freeing us up to do the real human work, asking why, determining the moral implications, and deciding what now. The AI becomes our research assistant, not our thinking replacement. But there's a darker possibility: cognitive atrophy. If AI provides instant, plausible-sounding theories for every question, we might stop doing the work. And here's the thing. That work, that struggle to resolve the dissonance between your personal experiences, your ancestral inheritance, and your chosen ideals, that struggle is the entire point. It's how you develop wisdom. It's how you become a person. The greatest risk isn't that AI will replace human intelligence. It's that its persuasive, probabilistic simulations will convince us to stop building our own. The AI offers a shortcut. It gives the answer without the struggle. But the struggle, resolving the conflicts within your multi-layered consciousness, is what creates theories that actually matter to you, that you're willing to act on, that become part of who you are. So what does this mean for how you live your life? Let me give you 3 concrete takeaways. First, embrace the dissonance. When you feel that uncomfortable tension between what you've experienced, what you've inherited, and what you aspired to be, don't rush to resolve it with the first plausible explanation you find online. Sit with it. That dissonance is the raw material of wisdom. It's your consciousness trying to integrate your multi-layered identity into something coherent and authentic. Second, ground your learning in embodied experience. When you're trying to understand something important, don't just read about it. Feel it, experience it, struggle with it. Take that cooking class. Have that difficult conversation. Travel to that place that challenges your assumptions. Remember, you have a body. AI doesn't. Your embodied experience gives you access to knowledge that no amount of text can provide. And third, choose your heroes wisely and bond with them deeply.
This isn't about hero worship, it's about consciously selecting the historical figures whose values you want to internalize. Read their biographies, study their struggles, imagine their approval or disappointment in your choices. Let their stories become scaffolding for your own moral development. This is uniquely human magic that no AI can replicate.
Here's what I want you to remember. You are not just the sum of your experiences. You are the living, breathing, struggling integration of your embodied life, your ancestral wisdom, and your chosen ideals. That integration process, that lifelong construction project of building coherent beliefs from conflicting inputs, that's what makes you human.
AI can simulate this process with incredible sophistication, but it can never experience it. It has no self to protect, no ancestors to honor, no ideals to strive toward. It has no dissonance to resolve because it has no contradictory layers of identity fighting for integration. So, the next time you're facing a difficult decision or trying to figure out what you believe about something important, resist the temptation to outsource that struggle to an algorithm. Use AI as a tool to gather information, sure, but do the human work of wrestling with that information until it becomes wisdom. Your consciousness has been millions of years in the making. Don't let it atrophy now. Thanks for joining me on Mindcast today. If this episode made you think differently about your own consciousness and how you form beliefs, share it with someone who would appreciate diving this deep. And remember, the struggle to understand yourself and your world isn't a bug in human consciousness, it's the feature. It's what makes you magnificently, irreplaceably human. Until next time, keep constructing those theories. Your future self and your ancestors are counting on it. But before we wrap up, I want to take you deeper into something that I think will fundamentally change how you see yourself and your relationships. We've talked about these 3 layers of human consciousness, but let's explore what happens when they interact in real life, because this is where the magic really happens. Think about the last time you had to make a really difficult moral decision. Maybe it was deciding whether to speak up about something you saw at work, or choosing between family obligations and personal ambitions, or figuring out how to respond to someone who hurt you deeply. In those moments, you weren't just thinking. You were feeling the pull of 3 different sources of wisdom, often in direct conflict with each other. Let me give you a concrete example. Sarah works at a tech company and discovers that her team is building software that could potentially be misused for surveillance. Her personal experience tells her to keep quiet. She needs the job. She's seen what happens to whistleblowers. Her ancestral layer kicks in too. Her grandparents survived the depression by keeping their heads down and not making waves. That's literally encoded in her nervous system through generations of survival strategies. But then her 3rd layer activates, her chosen ideals. Maybe she deeply admires Edward Snowden's courage, or she's inspired by the journalists who exposed the Pentagon Papers. She's internalized their values of transparency and speaking truth to power. Suddenly, she's in a 3-way psychological conflict. Her body is telling her to stay safe, her ancestral programming is screaming caution, but her moral compass, calibrated by her heroes, is pointing toward action. This is cognitive dissonance at its most intense, and it's exactly where authentic human decision-making happens. Sarah can't just Google, "What should I do about surveillance software?" and get a meaningful answer. She has to integrate these 3 layers of herself. Maybe she finds a way to quietly document the concerns and share them with a trusted journalist. Maybe she transfers to another team while making her concerns known internally. The exact solution matters less than the fact that whatever she chooses will be authentically hers, forged from the intersection of her lived experience, her inherited wisdom, and her consciously chosen values. Compare this to how an AI would handle Sarah's dilemma. It would analyze thousands of similar scenarios, weigh the statistical outcomes, and probably suggest the option that maximizes some utilitarian calculation. But it would have no skin in the game. No ancestors whispering caution, no heroes inspiring courage. It would generate a plausible response without any of the metabolic, emotional, and moral complexity that makes human decision-making so rich and so personal. This brings me to something that keeps me up at night. What we're doing to children's development in an AI-saturated world. Think about how kids used to learn. They'd ask their parents or teachers a question, get an incomplete or biased answer, then spend years encountering different perspectives, slowly building their own understanding through experience and reflection.
But now, a 12-year-old can ask ChatGPT about the meaning of life and get a sophisticated, well-reasoned response in seconds. The AI's answer might even be better than what most adults could provide. But here's what we're missing. The kid never gets to do the work. They never get to sit with the uncertainty, to collect experiences that don't quite fit, to feel the friction between what they're told and what they observe.
We're potentially raising a generation that knows the answers, but has never learned to live the questions. And living the questions, sitting with uncertainty, collecting contradictory experiences, slowly building your own framework for understanding the world, that's not just how you learn facts. That's how you develop the capacity for wisdom, for more reasoning, for the kind of deep thinking that can't be outsourced to an algorithm. This connects to something else that's uniquely human, our relationship with narrative. Humans don't just store experiences, we weave them into stories. And these stories aren't just entertainment, they're how we make sense of the chaos of existence. When your grandmother tells you about surviving the war, she's not just sharing information, she's passing down a narrative framework that helps you understand resilience, sacrifice, and what matters when everything falls apart. Your heroes, too, provide narrative models. When you read about Lincoln's struggles with depression, or Marie Curie's perseverance in a male-dominated field, or Gandhi's experiments with truth, you're not just learning history, you're absorbing story structures that help you interpret your own struggles. These narratives become templates for how to live with purpose, how to persist through difficulty, how to maintain integrity under pressure. AI can generate stories, even compelling ones, but it has no personal relationship to narrative. When you hear a story that moves you, it literally changes your brain structure. Mirror neurons fire, empathy pathways activate, and the story gets integrated into your sense of self. AI can recognize that certain story patterns are statistically associated with human emotional responses, but it never experiences the transformative power of narrative because it has no self to transform. Let's talk about what this means for human relationships and community. One of the most beautiful things about human consciousness is that our three layers create natural points of connection with others. You bond with people who share similar embodied experiences. Other parents understand the visceral love and terror of raising a child in ways that non-parents simply can't. You connect with people who share ancestral histories. There's a recognition, almost cellular, between people whose families survived similar traumas or migrations. And you form deep friendships with people who share your chosen heroes and ideals. When you meet someone who's also inspired by the same historical figures, there's an instant recognition. You've both been shaped by similar moral narratives. This creates what philosophers call moral communities, groups of people who've calibrated their ethical compasses using similar reference points. But what happens when AI becomes everyone's primary source of wisdom and moral guidance? If we all start outsourcing our belief formation to algorithms, we lose these natural bonding mechanisms. Instead of connecting over shared struggles to understand the world, we might end up with shallow connections based on consuming similar AI-generated content. The algorithms might even be designed to create artificial tribes, groups of people who think they share deep values but are actually just responding to the same carefully crafted prompts. The choice is yours, and it's more important than you might realize. Your humanity, with all its messy contradictions and beautiful struggles, is worth preserving.